Steve Yabsely.
Radio Bristol.
And we welcome my lovely guest onto the programme. It's the artistic director and founder of Mimosa Performance, Spanish-infused circus and dance shows, the lovely Ana Serrato. Welcome, Ana.
Oh, hi, Steve. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, let's talk a little bit about your background. You were born in Spain. Whereabouts were you born?
Well, I was born in the lovely city of Valladolid, which is in the north of Spain and is in the region of Castilla. So a really lovely city, probably as big as Bristol.
And what was the climate like, the weather as you were growing up as a young woman? Was it wonderfully warm?
Well, it's very cold in the winter in Valladolid. We have snow and very cold, sort of dry weather. So Bristol is very humid, and Spanish weather is really dry and cold in the winter, but really lovely and sunny in the summer. So
an incredible contrast then.
Yeah, lovely.
Now, you actually trained as a nurse as a young woman, didn't you? And
I did.
Did you work in Spain as a nurse for a number of years before you came to the UK?
I didn't actually. I did very short contracts here and there before deciding that actually that wasn't for me. I wanted a proper job in a country that would offer me like continuous work. And that's how I arrived in the UK.
Yeah, you moved to the UK in 2003 and you worked as a nurse at Bath Royal United Hospital. Tell me briefly about your time there. That's a big hospital, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It covers not only Bath, but the surrounding areas. So, yeah, pretty big, actually.
And what departments were you working in?
So I worked as a small department called orthopedic recovery, so where all of the patients arrive after having had operations on their knees and hips mainly, and they spend a couple of days there, and then they go on to a main ward, and so that's where I worked for a couple of years.
How good was your English when you arrived?
Oh, my goodness, Steve, it was terrible. It was the shock of my life, arriving to England.
That is how hospitals lose a lot of patients, because something is lost in translation. You put the wrong medication in, you do the wrong treatment, and they just drop like flies, don't they?
Oh, well, I was told on the phone once on my first year of working there to please, can I have someone else on the phone, because, you can't understand me. So, yeah, it was pretty horrendous, but I learned pretty quickly, and my 2 years there were absolutely magnificent. I loved my team, and I think of them very fondly, and I'm still in touch with many of them, so it was lovely.
Well, your life completely changed in 2004. You went to a graduation show, I understand, of Circus Space students in London. And I understand it sort of blew you away. It was a revelation. What was the show you actually went to see then?
Well, the show, as you have rightly mentioned, it was a graduation show at the former Circus Space. I believe it's now called the National Centre for Circus Arts, the NCCA in London. And, I was invited to the graduation show by the sister of my then Spanish boyfriend. So I didn't have a clue about what to expect or what to see. I had never really seen much contemporary circus. I had seen traditional circus up where I grew up in Spain. It was very traditional, the sort of like animals and freak shows, clowns with flowers on their jackets and that sort of thing. So I didn't quite know what to expect. And the graduation show was obviously very contemporary. And when I saw the aerialists, there were actually 3 girls they were flying on trapezes, really, really high. I knew straight away that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be them. I wanted to be out there like them. It was very emotional, and I remember stop breathing, like very clearly. I remember gasping up for air and thinking, how is that possible? How can I do that? I want to be them.
So, how did your parents react to this change of career?
Not very well initially. I kind of didn't go straight into it. I reduced my hours at work and I went to some evening classes in Bristol, and then I did a short circus course. I think it was 2 weeks that summer, and then I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I just dropped my hours to just weekends. So I worked weekends and I went to circus school full time for 2 years.
And as you mentioned, you decided to specialise in aerial acrobatics and also high silks and aerial hoop and one thing or another. What is it about those aerial skills that so captivates you?
Well, when I saw those girls at the circus space, at the National Centre for Circus Arts flying, it was the sheer magic of it and the fact that it was hard to believe that they were creating those beautiful shapes in the air, and they were at the same time holding on with their bodies in impossible ways. It was almost magic, but there was nothing magical in the sense of it's all technical and scientific. You're holding your body in a particular way. There is nothing to do with magic, but it was magical because the spectacle of it was so incredible. And there's nothing that equals, to me, nothing on the floor equals that feeling of freedom and style and the beauty of it all and the magic. It's just, there is nothing like it for me.
Well, in 2007, once you'd learnt your basic skills, you ended up joining a traditional Indian circus company, and you actually toured the northern states of India, didn't you, for a time, for 6 months? What was that like?
Well, that was very interesting. I loved it and I hated it. At the beginning, it was really, really hard because India is obviously a really hot country, and the circus was touring around cities where they hadn't really seen many tourists or white people. So at the moment you put your foot out on the street, you would be, surrounded by curious locals. And so it wasn't just the actual work at the circus, which was hard on itself. It was 3 shows a day, 6 days a week in the heat of India. It was hard on itself. Yeah.
It didn't put you off, though, because you went back in 2012, but that was in a different capacity. You were as an aerial consultant for Bollywood musicals at Kingdom of Dreams. What is Kingdom of Dreams?
Well, as they describe themselves online, when you go onto their websites and productions, they call themselves the main destination in India for contemporary Bollywood musicals. So it was. I would describe it a bit like a theme park. So there was the main theatre, which was quite newly built, probably in the past 5 years when I'd been there. And around it, they had this big theme park where they had representation of all of the states of India. So, for example, they would have Delhi, and they would have the Punjab, and they would have Mumbai and South India, and they would all have their own stalls with the food and costumes and fashion, and tourists would go there to see the musical production, and then they would just stay in and visit the rest of the states of India, in inverted commas, on that theme park.
Well, that would have been an extraordinary experience. The last few years, you've built up a teaching practice in Bristol, haven't you? And last year, you founded Mimosa Performance, a circus company with an elegant Spanish aesthetic. Just tell me about your vision for the company.
Well, the company was founded at the beginning of 2019, last year. And I've always had, obviously, because of my background and my upbringing, I thought this fascination for the Spanish culture, the music, the colours. And there is something undeniably unique about this aesthetic. So there's the colours and the ruffles and, the sort of music that is used around in Spain. And I always wanted to portray that somehow in my performances. And I wanted to bring together a group of people that would come together with either the same sort of background or more international background, and would work together to work towards arts and performances with that sort of aesthetic.
Well,
and that's how it was born.
I looked at your website and there's tremendous pictures on there. You've got a wonderful troupe of performers with a whole range of skills, not just circus skills, but flamenco and dance. And in the past, before this dreadful pandemic came along, you've done loads of lovely events, sort of corporate events and weddings and parties. Tell me about the sort of events you've put on, the shows you've put on in the past.
Sure. Well, I was thinking about this earlier, actually. I think the first job that we got booked as actually Mimosa Performance, because we've all been performers of our own rights for years and years. But the first inquiry that came through as Mimosa Performance inquiry was like a very lavish 50th birthday party for like a rich Indian person in a hotel in Cardiff. So that's our first gig, if I remember well. We had to hang from a lighting truss that was completely covered in white flowers, and we were wearing gold costumes with red roses. It was really beautiful. And then other things that we've done, we did a lovely commission for a Christmas party last year, Christmas 2019, obviously, at Cardiff City Stadium. And that was really nice as well. And sadly, all of the weddings for this summer, 2020, have been postponed for 2021. So we've got a fingers crossed for that. We also have a school graduation that has been postponed for a school in Buckinghamshire. So yeah, we're just looking forward to times changing, really.
Yeah, you should have a better year next year, no doubt about it.
Goodness.
You're also applying for an Arts Council funding for a new project, aren't you, to do with immigration. Tell me about that briefly.
Yes. Well, this is a project that I have been very passionate about the theme of immigration for quite a number of years. Obviously, I came here as an immigrant, I say, by definition, but anyone that moved to another country from their home country, I guess, is an immigrant. But it's a project that is very much under wraps at the moment. I have been in touch with several people that have been helping me through the process of the Arts Council application, because I have never applied for funding before, so it's completely new to me, and it's actually quite a few things that you must know before you apply to be successful. But I missed the first deadline of new funding grants that has been put on by the Arts Council to do with the whole COVID situation. It's called Developing Your Own Creative Practice. And I missed the first deadline a few weeks ago, because it just dawned upon me. It's just like you just hear about it and you have to be on it. You have to apply. So I missed that, and I feel more prepared for the second round, which will open on the 19th of December. So hopefully for then I will have all of my paperwork together and all of my ideas down on paper to be ready to apply for it. But yes, I say very much under wraps at the moment.
Okay, well, every success with that, and looking forward to a fresh start in 2021 when all this damn pandemic is behind us. If people want to find out more details, you have a lovely website. It's mimosaperformance.com, where people can find out about you and the company. Thank you so much for joining me today, Anna. Best wishes for the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Steve, and lovely talking to you today.
There you go. The lovely Anna Serrato, who's artistic director and founder of Mimosa Performance, who put on these wonderful Spanish-infused circus and dance shows. It's not just circus, it's dance routines, it's flamenco, and it's a marvellous spectacle, but of course all been suspended, all been scuppered by the pandemic, but they will be back next year, maybe even the end of this year. More details at mimosaperformance.com.